Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast, where we celebrate individuals and families, businesses, and organizations that seek out and promote the exploration, stewardship, conservation, access, and enjoyment of the outdoors. Gulf Shores and Orange Beach Tourism is the sponsor of our episode today. Warm temps and fresh seafood make the Alabama Gulf Coast the perfect beach destination for your family vacation, couples getaway, outdoor adventure, meetings, conferences, and conventions. Our guest today is Suzanne Downing. Suzanne is the publications editor for the Outdoor Writers Association of America. Suzanne, it's a pleasure to finally have you on the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast with me. Thank you.
Yeah, great to be here, Howard.
Fantastic. I'm really appreciative of the great folks at Gulf Shores and Orange Beach Tourism came again, and my friend Easton, because they said, well, you know something, if you're going to do some podcast episodes with us, you have to interview Suzanne. And I thought, well, you know something, I'm finally going to get her on the show. This is fantastic. And tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into outdoor adventure and writing, and then we'll dive more into the work that you were doing down in Alabama. So talk
Yeah,
to us about.
sure. I've always enjoyed camping, the outdoors, and I had the great opportunity to attend the University of Montana. They have an environmental science journalism program. And I've told stories since I was a little girl, love the outdoors. I did not know that you could intertwine the two. So once I figured that out, Howard, it was history. I
That's
was
great.
outdoors and I was storytelling, learning about our environment, and I was drawn to the Outdoor Writers Association of America right after grad school in 2019.
Fantastic. Now, I have to ask, did you grow up in Montana or did you grow up somewhere else?
I grew up in a tiny farm town of Indiana
Okay.
and moved to Montana about 7.5 years ago on a
Okay.
whim, my husband. Yep.
Okay. And what was, when you were in this tiny farm town in Indiana, had you had this outdoor adventure bug? Had you had family to take you hunting, fishing? How'd you get really enthused about the outdoor space?
Well, as much as I could do in Indiana, I did. I did grow up camping and we did a lot of fishing. We mostly went away from Indiana down to Kentucky to
Okay.
explore more terrain. So, yeah, I've always had dirt under my fingernails as a kid, always wanted to explore, always played with rocks, always wanted to be by water. Yeah, it's definitely in my bones.
Okay. And as far as, so you got married, you moved to Montana. Is that, now that's where you went to graduate school.
Mhm. Yes.
And how did you decide on that particular program? Because it's, I mean, first of all, Montana, I haven't been there yet, but I have a hope, I'm hoping that someday I will go a little farther north than where we were in Casper. But how did you decide, well, Montana is where it's going to be?
We drove through here. I was working in marketing at the time, and my husband and I drove through here with an exhibit on a way to a show. And we both looked at each other in the truck and said, what is this place? We saw the mountains. It was just a feeling, Howard. We felt this feeling in both of us. He grew up a street away from me. So we were both these small town Indiana folk. We just knew we had to go to Montana. When we moved, I had no idea they had an environmental science journalism program. When I started enjoying our shared spaces, national parks, went to Glacier, went to Yellowstone, I was in awe that these are our shared spaces. I had no idea that was my land. It's your land. And I started understanding more about conservation and ecology and how much work goes in the background. I love behind the scenes. And the background people working to make this all happen is something I don't hear much about. And I wanted to experience that and tell people and show people what goes on behind the scenes to make this land so beautiful and conserve it.
You know, I can appreciate what you've just shared because I grew up in very urban like settings in Southeast Michigan. So we had Detroit, Oakland County. We had state parks, county parks. Occasionally we'd go up farther north, and we have obviously had bodies of water all around Michigan, but I never truly appreciated all of the activities that could be enjoyed being outdoors. And I have to admit too, if not for the Outdoor Writers Association of America, which is how I met you, and becoming a member, I mean, the topics like conservation, stewardship, access, exploration had never been on my radar. And I love the fact it's on the radar now, and we get to have conversations like you and I are having today. So let's circle back. So you got your graduate degree. Tell us a little bit more about that degree and some of the projects you were working on.
Sure. I love little critters and I love big critters. So I primarily focused in school on more of the wildlife conservation. I had to do the law classes, the journalism law, and the more serious things. But for me, when it came down to wildlife conservation, I was very intrigued with that. And the program I was embedded into a conservation ecology lab with a great professor that taught me a lot about the language, a lot about the studies of animals. For example, I worked on a story with a ornithologist, which is someone that studies birds. And he was
I knew
doing,
that, by the way. I knew
yeah,
that.
good job. Yeah. And he was working on the American Prairie Reserve and he was banding curlews and long-billed curlews and doing a lot of research. So I got to do a deep dive, and the program really gave me an opportunity to understand that, again, behind the scenes of what goes into conserving our wildlife. Wildlife just doesn't automatically thrive with the human impacts that are happening. And the program allowed me to focus on what I was interested in.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did that interest then translate to communicating to people like me who are it wasn't even on our radar, or we are a novice, or something we have knowledge and we want to grow? How does that study and the work that you were doing begin to translate in creating, expanding people's awareness?
Yeah, that's a great question, Howard. So, with Outdoor Writers Association of America, which I refer to as OWAA, that's the beauty of communication is we work with outdoor communicators and they're doing the groundwork for us communicating those types of things. And say you're in Yellowstone and you're in awe of the elk that walks past your car or the bison that you're seeing grazing. That's all because somebody behind the scenes is working to make sure those animals are thriving. And improving your craft, helping translate the science to the common folk is really difficult. There's a lot of big words, like even ornithology is a big word. So you have to be able to communicate like you would to your brother or your sister or your mom or your dad. And that's really where we come in, is helping other outdoor communicators. I want to help people improve their craft from what I've learned. And I do still freelance on the side, which is super fun.
Yeah.
And I just want to translate that to people and help them as well.